It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long for me to realize how different I look until I step outside for more than a minute. It doesn't take long for me to realize how different I look until what I need is on the top shelf with no step stool and no person in sight. For people to whisper as I stroll by and until I stroll by. For the world to make me feel smaller than $1 in both size and value. It doesn't take long before a child refers to me as a little mummy. It doesn't take long before an adult refers to me as a midget. It doesn't take long for me to then tell those people that the M word is a derogatory term and that they could have used inclusive language instead. There are only 2 reasons why someone would refer to me as that in the first place. They don't know any better, or they just don't care. It doesn't take long for those people to see the diagnosis, to see that you're a different race, to see that you have a different skin color or hair texture or speak a different language. We can all recall a time when someone misjudged your race or ethnicity, your pronouns, or your sexual orientation. It does, however, take long to become fluent in inclusive language. As a member of a minority group, I've studied inclusive language in my Disability and Community Studies program and my Gender, Women's Studies, and Sexualities course. So today, I'll be arguing why using inclusive language is important in the sustainability of language by explaining how this is a problem, the impact the problem has, and what we can do to properly solve it to help historically marginalized groups feel included. So, let's begin with the problem. The English language is responsible for producing biased, non-inclusive language and reinforcing systems of inequality. For those of you who are unfamiliar with those terms, I'll explain. A bias is a belief you have. Oppression is an action taken by you or a group against a less powerful idea, person, group, or belief that is often harmful and offensive, making them feel excluded or underrepresented. Mohammed from the University of Iran mentions that, quote, during colonization, colonizers usually imposed or encouraged the dominance of their native language onto the people they colonized, even forbidding natives to speak their mother tongues, end quote. Take the phrase divide and conquer as an example. It has negative connotations associated with colonialism and is rooted in the Jim Crow era, a white man's voting laws that discriminated against Black people at the end of the Civil War in 1877. Remember my story at the beginning? I was called the M word, midget? That was a bias, and it's offensive because it comes from the circus era of oppression, where this white man by the name P.T. Barnum used to make money off the backs of marginalized groups. Now that you have a better understanding of how it all began, we can now discuss the impacts it has and continues to have on marginalized groups. Do the words on the board make you feel uncomfortable? Because they're supposed to. If you're uncomfortable, that probably means you're already aware of the impact non-inclusive language can have. The impact on society is that it's tearing diversity and equality apart like a lion, tearing apart their prey, unconcerned of the consequences. The impacts on the self-esteem of people can lead to low self-worth and low self-esteem. Their impacts on individuals feeling as if they don't belong anywhere can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, or even sadly suicide. In an article done by the Government of Canada states that death by suicide is 2.7 times higher for people experiencing high social isolation and material deprivation due to their race, religion, and ability. And these statistics are pre-COVID. If you know this phrase, I ask you to join along. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. Let's say it again. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt.
Not true.
Which you're hopefully now aware is complete. I can't say that word. Let's go to my next point. As a society cannot change if individuals, each and every one of you, takes the initiative to learn inclusive language and apply it to your everyday lives. You want to put it? Sorry. According to the University of Queensland's Guide to Using Inclusive Language, there are 10 principles of inclusive language, but I'm only going to share the 6 that I feel are the most valuable. Principle 1, awareness of the diversity within and between groups. Principle 2, use people-first language that centers on the individual rather than their descriptor. Principle 3, consider a strength-based approach rather than a deficit approach.
True.
Principle 4, set aside any assumptions about the background and preferences of others. Principle 5, consider the historical context and implications of words and phrases. Principle 6, listen to others when they share the words or phrases they find harmful. If someone I know, or even a complete stranger, uses non-inclusive biased language around me, whether it's directly at me or out in the open, I correct them for 2 reasons. The first reason, number 1, if I don't, they'll never learn.
True.
And number 2, if I don't, I become part of the problem. Language can be slow to change, as can the thinking and beliefs behind it. However, the more we all use inclusive, unbiased language, the more natural it feels and the more common it will become. So, to conclude, I have taken you back in time to look at non-inclusive biased language, how the problem first began, the impact it had and continues to have, and what we can do to sustain it so that everyone can feel included. I would like to leave you with a quote by Martin Luther King. He said, "In the end, what will hurt us the most is not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Thank you.